Hi, and welcome to this episode of Resilient Voices. Today I'm having a guest in the studio. Her name is Jennifer Nunez.
That's right.
She is from Australia, but she's got a different resilient story, because that's what we talk about here, isn't it? Resilient stories, resilient voices. So with that said, I just want to say thank you for being here and welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. So we're going to have a bit of a different conversation today about resilience. It will be a bit more about in the like a career change, and that really has been a life-defining moment for you, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it really starts with my cultural identity. So I grew up in Australia, but my last name's Nunez, so I have an Ecuadorian father and an Indonesian mother. I grew up in a biracial family in Australia. And I think that's, I mention this because it has shaped quite a lot of my journey with identity and what that actually means. So I'll share a little bit more about the sort of environment I grew up in and how that leads into my story around work and career change. So parents came to Australia with not very much, came looking for a better life, and they were quite lucky to stay in Australia. And I think there's a lot of beauty and richness when it comes to mixing two really different cultures together and then raising children in a country where they're likely to grow up with values different to, the parents' own. And I like to think of it as though you're mixing paint, red and blue makes a really rich purple, but at the same time can sometimes make a really murky color as well. So there's richness and complexity in that. And I think that really shapes has shaped a lot of my relationship to identity and who I think I am or who I thought I was and who I'm becoming as well. So growing up, I had always been in a very multicultural environment. So my parents had purchased a house and it was quite a big one. They were really lucky to do so, both coming from families that never really had a stable home. So that was quite an achievement for them. And this house had a granny flat at the back, and my mum was, let's say, an early pioneer of house hacking. So she had rented those rooms out to exchange students. So I grew up in a really multicultural environment with both parents being from two different countries, but then also having these international exchange students living at our home, basically since I was 1 year old. So I've never not been in a multicultural environment. And I suppose that's shaped me in terms of, in some ways, feeling like I'm not necessarily Indonesian, not really Ecuadorian, neither Australian as well. And it's funny, when I first moved overseas and people would ask me things about Australia, I would say, like, my experience is not the typical Australian experience. I grew up eating empanadas, but also gado-gado and nasi goreng. That's what was on the plate.
And the Sunday Barbie.
Sunday Barbie as well, yes, but Ecuadorian style, like
Ecuadorian style, yeah.
And that was my childhood. I didn't grow up surfing or playing football or rugby, didn't go to the pub. It was a very, my sister likes to call it an ethnic environment. And even the area in Sydney that I grew up in was very multicultural. In my school, I never had anyone, none of my friends were not from another culture. They were all second-generation immigrants. So I'm just sharing this because I think it paints a picture of what my childhood was like. And I think a common story with immigrant children or second-generation immigrants is this idea that your parents have worked really, really hard to create what they have, in this case, moving to Australia, building a house, etc., raising their kids there. And so I think growing up, you always live with the let's say, the heaviness of the fact that your parents gave up a lot to give you what you have now. And so I had always grown up with this mentality that that my worth was related to working hard, and that's what life was about working hard and making sure that I achieved because my parents gave up so much for us. And so, yeah, to
Was that a heavy burden for you to carry? Did you feel that as a child? Or
as a kid, no. But then reflecting on it as I got older, I started to, I guess, untangle some of the stories that I grew up with and understand what life is supposed to be like and question the things that I thought life was supposed to be like. I think a really big moment for me was when I actually left Australia. I was about 28 years old, had quit my job, left my partner at the time, moved out of my apartment and moved back in with my parents, and then made a big decision to move overseas to go and pursue the things that I'd always wanted to do, but was just really afraid of leaving behind security. And I think coming to Portugal and meeting people from all over the world, people asking you lots of questions about what Australia is like, and kind of reckoning with the idea that my childhood was actually quite different to most Australians, white Australians' childhood. And that's when I started to really learn more about myself just in the context of cultural identity and how my identity was so mixed. And I think with that, I overcompensated with working really hard and pursuing the traditional path, let's say, of trying to move up the career ladder and making choices based on money, making choices based on status, based on title and things like that. And that eventually led me to a place where I was just so unfulfilled with what I was doing. I think on the surface, it looked good. I mean, I had a very creative role. I was a designer. I worked for Google. I worked for Deloitte, had a good salary. Like there was nothing to complain about really. But there's this inner...
It was a void.
A void or an inner misalignment, a feeling of, you know, is this really it? Is this what I'm meant to do with the rest of my life? And just a sense of like not really finding joy in what I was doing. And that was really the first turning point. I don't think it was, you know, one big event. I think there were multiple different events over time that just slowly started to change the direction that I was going in.
So it was a slow process or slow, but it was a process more than like an actual event that just tripped that change.
Yes, exactly. And I would say the first moment was what I described earlier when I was working at Deloitte and felt quite motivated to move up the ladder, move up to director, partner, that sort of thing. But just found, you know, in my sleep, I was grinding my teeth. On Sundays, I would be dreading going to work, you know, trying to compensate by having like headspace in my headphones on the way to work, but then, you know, getting to work and then drinking copious amounts of coffee and just eating poorly. You know, you try to push away what you're actually feeling inside and just power through sort of thing. And so, there came a moment where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like something is not working. I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's my relationship, if it's the work environment that I'm in, if it's the job that I'm doing. Felt just really confused. So I just decided to quit all of it. And it was really scary. I had never not been in a certain position, let's say. So dealing with the uncertainty was really scary. But decided to quit all of it and said to myself, something is not working. I've got to change the way that I'm living or just what I'm doing right now. And that's when I moved back home. I was, 27 or 28. Moved back home, started to take yoga classes. I think prior to that, I'd just seen yoga as flexibility and, you know, had gone to a few yoga classes at Google and thought, wow, this is cool, like for sport. But never thought of it as anything more than that.
So this was sort of the gym yoga.
Gym yoga. Exactly. But I started going to yoga classes and sometimes they would read poems at the end or, you know, speak in metaphors that really touched me and at times made me cry. And I was like, this yoga thing, like this is way more than just fitness and gym. And so I continued going, and it led me to a retreat in Thailand and a retreat in Sydney. Started to learn about trauma at one of these retreats, and it just really opened up this world of spirituality, but also all of the things that are unseen, the unconscious and things like that. I wouldn't say it was, you know, a full awakening or anything like that, but it just cracked open this little crack of possibility that there was a different way to be in this world.
Yeah. And I like how you say different way of being, because that's really that I think that most people forget about this, that we're actually human being, not human doing, but we end up doing way too much. Yes. And especially when it's not aligned with what we actually, when it's something that's not aligned within.
Yes.
So this is what you experienced, and it's interesting with the yoga, how that
gets you back into the body, right? Yeah. And I think that's very much my story, going from very much a human doing to a human being. Yeah. So yoga was really the thing that cracked me open, and just started to pursue that, but not in a big way. It just came through in wanting to practice more, and finding the courage as well to make different decisions. For example, I knew that I always wanted to move overseas, but I never did because I was so attached to security, whether that was a job or a relationship. Really afraid to make big choices like a move overseas, which now in hindsight, I don't see that as a big choice anymore. That's just because I've been through it now. But at the time, it was a huge decision for me. So eventually I found another role. It was in Portugal. They sponsored my move. It was a very easy move logistics wise. But once I'd moved to Portugal and started in that role, I just started to repeat the same patterns as when I was back in Sydney. And so it's a funny thing, like you change your environment, but you are still the same person. Your patterns are still the same. Yeah. So patterns of overworking, of saying yes to everything, people pleasing, all of the things that you would imagine a girl who grew up with hardworking immigrant parents would grow up with, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think the story kind of aligns, like you can see from childhood to working patterns that there's a straight line there. I ended up leaving that role again because I felt burnt out by the end of a year. And I remember one conversation he wasn't a manager, but he was like an assigned mentor to me. And in our first session, I had brought to him, I feel like I'm spinning so many plates and I don't know what to do about it. And he did the coaching thing of asking me, what do you think you should do? And I said, maybe I need to time block all the different activities into my calendar and make sure that I have time in there for everything. And he's like, okay, what else? And I was like, honestly, I'm not sure. And then he said to me, you could say no. And that was like a huge revelation for me. I just didn't know that I couldn't say no. And that was another turning point for me. It was like, wow, I didn't know I could say no to things like
wow. That is really powerful. It's so simple in its essence, but yet very, very powerful, isn't it?
And not just in professional life, but also in personal life as well. Saying no to things that are no longer aligned to you. Shortly after that, I decided to leave that role. And I, again, took what at the time felt like a courageous decision for somebody who was so attached to security. I decided to take a year off, and I said to myself, okay, you've repeated this same pattern of burning out and saying yes to everything and pursuing a path that you're not even sure you want to pursue anymore. So I took a year off. I remember, I think in the first couple of weeks that I had off work, that I was just crying to friends, like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with myself. Work had been my identity this whole time. And so to let go of such a part of you that you made like your whole life was really unsettling. You have your foundation taken out under you. But throughout that year, I just decided to go and pursue things that I had always wanted to do, but just pushed away for a while in service of my career instead. And
so when are we now? What year is it?
It is 2021, so just after COVID. I'd moved to Portugal in 2020, year of COVID. Stayed in that job for a year, and then 2021 I had a year sabbatical. And so I did a bunch of different things. I taught English to children. I took a yoga teacher training. I started learning Spanish because I'd never learned either of my parents' languages before. So this was one way of connecting to my cultural identity. I traveled for 3 months in Central America. And I think through that process of just being in the world differently, I started to realize that, wow, I can live differently. And there are plenty of other people who are also living differently and not taking this very traditional path of moving up the career ladder. By the end of that year, I ended up moving to Ericeira, and after a month of being here, ended up meeting my partner, who is Chilean. It always makes me laugh to think that I ended up with somebody who's from a different culture again. Like this just seems to be the story that runs through, the red thread that runs through my life. So fast forward, I decide, okay, I'm going to go back to work, but this time in a freelance capacity, doing the same sort of role that I had before, so product design in tech, but in a freelance capacity instead. And that was really great because you have very clear start and end dates, and then you have like, a couple of weeks, sometimes a month off to go and do whatever you want. So that gave me the space to really think about, what do I really want in life? What are my curiosities? What do I want to start exploring? So I ended up freelancing for 3 years whilst I was going on my own personal growth journey and doing more of yoga and exploring more about personal development and spirituality and all of those different things that I just never really had the time or never created the space to explore rather. So that led me eventually to having conversations with different people about their aspirations. I had a friend at the time who was really interested in yoga and hypnotherapy, and just through conversations with people in that area made me realize that could be a potential career path. Maybe not for me, but it is. Like, that's a thing that you can do. I had never even realized that that's a thing you can do as a career. So, it just opened, again, like just another crack of possibility. Opened a crack of possibility for me. I think with my story, there wasn't any really big moments, just all of these small pieces that give you clues as to where you might go with your life, these tiny experiments.
But then along the way, because somehow you felt that something was not right when you started to make those little changes. So something was somewhere pushing you forward or into making different decisions and choices.
Yes.
So was that like, do you know what that was? Was it just you felt like this is just not working, doesn't make sense? Was it a bodily sensation, or was it just like, because you said you were on the way of like a burnout, was that how was it your body responding and telling you that this is not
Yeah.
working.
It always starts with the body, doesn't it? For sure. Definitely coming through the body. Grinding my teeth in my sleep.
Oh yeah, you said that. Yeah.
Just generally feeling low energy.
Yeah.
Also problems with my gut as well, not really taking care of the things that I was putting into my body, feeling super anxious all the time, every morning, probably partially because of caffeine. I don't drink coffee now, but also partially because of this inner sense of misalignment, I guess, as well. So definitely showed up in patterns in my body. And I think the beauty of yoga is that it opens up your body. I am 100% sure that during those times I was very much like contracted in. And then when you do positions like a backbend, you suddenly are really opening up, and somehow that just opens up something in your psyche as well.
And also the breath, I think, the breathing, the
breath.
pranayama, actually start to work with that. Because really what I want to say to all the ladies and maybe some men or two that's listening to this, that quite often you don't really, it's your body that will tell you. So if you have, there are a lot of signs that your body is starting to tell you slowly, like there are things, I'm not feeling well, this is coming, and then you add just getting more and more and more, and then eventually you just sort of have to come to a stop, a break at least, that this is not working. Because I think that a lot of people go to, I go to the doctor, it's a physical problem, I'm sick somehow, instead of asking the questions that maybe I'm actually not doing the right things in my life. Maybe it is a, like you said, a misalignment that is actually, that it's actually your soul, your mental capacity that is in a, I mean, it's just a clash.
Yeah. And so I'm currently reading, I don't know if you've read this, but it's called Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life by James Hollis.
No, I haven't read that.
It's a really beautiful book, and he talks about how we tend to speak about quarter life crisis or midlife crisis as a thing to smirk at, like, he's gone to buy a Ferrari or whatever, or that somebody's gone and had an affair. But actually what it is the inner calling of your soul to do something that's more in alignment with who you actually are. And he talks about how in the first half of life we use all of these strategies, such as pursuing wealth or pursuing success, because we think that's what will make us fulfilled. But then in the second half of life, this is a call to greater alignment. And I've loved reading this book because I think it really speaks to my experience, but also the experience of people that I know who are also going through this re-evaluation of their values and of their life and how they want to be in the world. So that's what that reminds me of, this summons to be in the world differently, essentially. Through just conversations with various people, exploring different possible career pathways, and just seeing for myself how much yoga and breath work and somatic practices had really changed me as a person. I started to become more interested in coaching, and I joined a group coaching program. And I remember sitting in the first group session. I barely understood anything that these people were talking about, because a lot of these concepts were quite new to me. He had introduced internal family systems and parts work. And I think when it's your first time listening that, you're made up all of these different parts, and can you be more compassionate with this part of yourself? It's really foreign. So I ended up sticking around anyway for about six to 8 months, I think it was. And so again, this opened another, it was another crack of possibility, like had never heard of internal family systems or parts work. And that has been a very big part of my own growth journey, learning to be compassionate with a part of myself that needs to achieve or needs to prove or needs to be doing something to be of value. So that was a very important framework or technique, if you like, that was helpful. Actually, thinking about that reminds me, just before I had decided to move overseas and make that big change, I remember being in therapy sessions with a psychotherapist. She actually came from a background. I knew her background. She came from, I think she had worked at like Ernst & Young, and at the time I was working at Deloitte. And she was very much urging me to stay on that pathway because there was a lot of growth to be had there. And I remember choosing to end those sessions because I felt she was influencing the decisions I was about to make. And I'm not saying that there's not a lot to be gained from therapy, but I think in my particular instance, moving into yoga and exploring this world of the body and somatics was just such a huge leap for me. It was the thing that I needed at that time, if that makes sense.
Because that I can just tap into that, because for me as well, I find that especially if you're so in your mind, you're all your life you've been in this achiever's mindset, the doing things and everything. Then talk therapy just continues that. So the answers to your situation still comes from the place of mind.
Yes.
Which is not really, if we're going to be like really looking at a holistic perspective of like finding out who we are and listening to our soul's purpose and really go into that, then we need to find a different method, a different way of doing it, where we really connect to our body, because that's where all the wisdom lives, isn't it? Because if we're in the mind, we're just using the same type of method that we think that's going to take us out of our situation that's bothering us. That's our problem. But but it's with the same way, that same tool, which is the brain, the head, the mental, that brought us there.
Yep.
So I don't really believe in therapy in such way, because I think that. So I really, really resonate with what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And I have my own experience with that as well, that going into my body, and yoga breathwork was also my way of navigating forwards in a different way.
I think especially coming from the corporate world, where you were spending 8 to 10 hours a day just in your head thinking through problems. I would definitely say that at the time I was just very disconnected with how I was feeling. There were even times where I didn't even know I was hungry, couldn't even feel the hunger, and so yoga was super transformative in terms of just bringing me back into the body. So, after taking these group coaching sessions and just learning more about how to go on this journey of self-discovery with yourself and growing as a person, I started to become more and more interested in coaching, and I ended up enrolling for a coaching course, but not because I wanted to be a coach. It was really a personal development thing for myself, to challenge myself to be, to learn more about oneself, because I think that's what often happens when you do take a coaching course. And also it was kind of a career experiment for myself as well. I thought that I wanted to go back to university to study psychology or neuroscience or something in that area. That was where the thread of curiosity was. Yeah. Also because I was on that journey myself as well. I think people tend to be attracted to those fields when they're on that journey. But, committing to university for 6 years is a really long time, especially in your 30s or even later. Not saying that it's not impossible, but for me, I was like, okay, I need to make a considered choice about this if I really want to do this. And yeah, by the end of the coaching course, I just felt like I had grown so much as a person. Like, you learn so much about yourself, about your patterns. And of course, that learning doesn't end. We just continue to learn more and more.
Unfortunately, it keeps on going.
Unfortunately, or fortunately.
In a way, I mean, because you keep on bumping into things that you may think, oh my God, am I done now? I'm just tired. I'll keep on doing the work.
Yeah,
in a way.
exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. And so that's led me down this path now where I think my story has in some ways informed what I do for work now. So I focus on career change coaching, and I think a good way to look at it is that sometimes career change is actually masking an identity shift underneath the surface. At least that's what it was for me, moving away from this person that I no longer was and moving towards the person that I was becoming. And I think your career is just a tangible manifestation of that identity shift. And I like to think of what I do now for work as more of a portfolio career, where I do the coaching, but then I also host events as well. I still do some of the design consulting as well. And I think there's a lot of value in not trying to pigeonhole yourself into just one work identity or one cultural identity. Yeah,
absolutely. It just takes me back to you talked about it in the beginning about it's a bit like colors, your identity, and you have different colors. And I think that maybe a career could be you have a palette of colors.
Yeah,
and you can choose different colors depending on a bit where you're at and what you want to focus on and what comes to you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And not be so stuck into that boxed in identity.
Yes.
And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I really like that analogy. I think it's very true. I think, if we talk about the idea of resilience in the context of an identity, I think a resilient identity is not necessarily one that is based solely on your cultural identity or solely on what you do for work, but that you are everything and also nothing at all at the same time. And I think it really begs the question of who are we as people? And I don't think I have the answer. I don't think we ever will. But just embracing the uncertainty of not tying yourself to one thing is what I see as being a very resilient identity. And I've recently met a lot of women who are navigating the transition into motherhood, and that yet again is another identity transition. And I think we continue to go through this throughout our lifetime. It's not just about the career change. I think it's about who we become and how we continue to evolve over time. And that's essentially the story.
Yeah. That's I really find it so interesting because for me, I mean, talking about identity as the platform for a journey, a life journey, and how that changes and how you describe it, I find it really interesting. And how you, when you put it in a certain context, how still like you brought with you your identity because it was programmed within you. So initially when you moved, you thought you could just change the environment and then it would change things. But then starting to realize, oh crap, this is within me. I have to change.
Yeah.
So you can't just change the circumstances you're in or the environment you're in, but you actually have to do the work yourself and start to explore that. And that's another identity change, isn't it? A shift of like, wow. And also gives you different layers. I think it's with the personal development journey and how we evolve as people, human beings, and spiritual beings. It's just like peeling an onion, isn't it? It's just layer after layer. It's like, wow. And then it just grows on you.
For sure. It reminds me of the diagram of Dilt's logical levels. And I think at the bottom you have environment, and then at the top you have your purpose and identity. And I think a lot of us tend to approach change by just changing the environment. And certainly that's sometimes needed. You do need to change your environment to see yourself in a different light. But then, you know, above that, you've got your behavior, then your skills and capability, your habits. I'm not sure what goes between, I can't remember off the top of my head, but at the top, you've got your identity. And that's really where the most profound change comes from, when you start to change your self-concept and how you see yourself. Career is just like one manifestation of that shift in your identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, what, like we talked about, and not on this, not today, you and I, but it keeps on coming up. This is, and I know you've been on a journey in personal development. Change your thoughts, and you will change your life. I mean, you can just pick a different thought, and that will create a different response. That is your behavior, action, and that obviously will start to change where you're moving in your life. So it is just that easy in a way that sometimes it's super difficult to stop your thoughts, but to start to tweak that and say, okay, so what's the next better thought I can think? And that you can sort of start to change that. And with different thoughts, behaviors, obviously that will create a different identity for yourself.
Yes, for sure. And I think the thought for me was something is not working here. It hasn't been working for a while. I need to either think about things differently or make different decisions. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Choosing to make different choices and also, like you said, thinking different thoughts as well about what's possible for yourself.
But it's also about stepping beyond the comfort zone.
Yes.
Because when we've had this conversation, it sounds like you've just made some changes and just some different life decisions. But obviously it's taken a lot of courage, right? To go through and do what you've done.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think maybe telling this story, people think, oh, it's just a story of career change. But for me at the time, making those decisions, it was really like my roots were being ripped out of the ground and just really not knowing who I was or what I needed to do, just a real sense of uncertainty. So they were really big decisions, at least for me at that time. At those various moments in time.
No, absolutely. I understand that. So what would you say, we talk about resilience, what would a definition for, what is the resilience for you?
I think the resilience for me would be recognizing that something is not working and actively choosing to make different choices. And also in the context of identity, recognizing that you're not just one thing and that you don't need to be defined by just one thing. And this one definitely goes out to the people who over-identify with their work or their career, the status, their title, etc. But we are so multi-dimensional and we don't need to box ourselves into just a square. It can be whatever shape you want. But yeah, I think at the core of it, the resilience part is really having the courage to do things differently, to go and seek those answers out for yourself in whatever form that takes.
Does it become easier, you think?
For sure. For sure. I think I've become a lot better at handling uncertainty. Less anxious and nervous about uncertainty. I also recognize that life is just this ongoing personal development journey and that there will be uncertainty in that. But I have the trust that I will be able to handle those things better because I push myself outside of my comfort zone. At the time, it was very much outside of my comfort zone to make those different choices. But I think that's part of the work, is continuing to push yourself beyond what's comfortable so that you continue expanding yourself. think a lot of it just comes down to self-trust and trusting that you will be able to figure things out when things don't go your way, when things go pear-shaped.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, thank you. I think that with, it's your body will tell you that something is off, that you need to make changes in your life. And I think that's what I take from this conversation, that it will eventually, really strongly tell you that, hey, stop, you need to look at something here. And then, obviously, be open to listening to that and just start to make some changes in your life. And you can, it's like we talk about personal transformation. It doesn't have to be one life-defining moment. And for those of you who listened to the podcast before and some stories, yes, there is one defining moment, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. But it's still a big transformation. It could be a process where the path is unfolding, isn't it?
Yeah.
Along the way. And that you when it comes to identity, how important that is for the trajectory of your life, basically. Because an identity shift needs to start from inside, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. In my case, it definitely started from within. Body telling me that there are signs, or giving me signs that something needs to change. Recognizing that something is moving beneath the surface. That it's not necessarily about environment or behavior, but about who you are as a person.
Yeah. So what is, if we're looking at Jennifer today, what is the biggest difference than before this, when you'd made a decision to leave that corporate environment when you did? What is the biggest difference you see?
Biggest difference, probably just less anxiety about stuff. I think corporate Jennifer would have been worried about everything and had this sense of wanting to control every aspect of life, including career, including relationships, etc. But there's been this loosening of the grip and allowing things, like you said, allowing things to just unfold. And there is more of a fluidity to how I approach life now, following curiosity and seeing where that takes me, as opposed to feeling like I need to have a life plan and live out every single year as I've planned it out. And I think that's a more liberating way to be in the world. I think the other thing that comes to mind is taking a mindset of experimentation and not seeing every single life decision as this one make or break life decision. But, you can make choices and it not be the right choice, and that's okay. You will figure out what the next right choice is. And I don't think there is such a thing as a wrong choice. It's just all learning. So that's been quite a big shift for me, just seeing everything as mini experiments that get you closer and closer to either alignment or purpose, or even the more tangible things like the people around you, closer and closer to the people that you've got to be around or that you want to be around, etc. Closer and closer to the thing that you want to do with your life, what you want to commit your life's work to, etc. So yeah, biggest shifts, definitely letting go of control, allowing the path to unfold, and taking on this more experimental mindset and being okay if things go pear-shaped. That's okay too.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your openness and your sharing. It's been very, very interesting and very valuable. So thank you. And for everyone that's listening, there's so many nuggets in this episode with the courage, the body leading the way to change. And I think what you also talked about, Jennifer, is the fluidity, the curiosity, and just allow things to unfold. And resilience just keeps on coming with you. It grows, it becomes easier, and your path is just unfolding in a. I think it's more what you're describing is more ease, isn't it? It's freedom. It's easier. So for everyone who's going through this, life become easier if you just listen to your voice in there. So just go out there, bring on that resilience, and keep on making those choices. And maybe you just think one thought differently per day, and then that will change the rest of your life. So thank you, and thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jessica.